What's up, melanated family? This is your brother Harrison. I'm back for another conversation. Happy everybody's with me. Welcome to the Melanated Convo if this is your first time. So, look, family, let's get into it. I just seen a video. I think the video was kind of old, but I just seen a video of the rapper Jim Jones, and this is a interesting topic. I think we need to break down and kind of dissect, right? Because a lot of this goes around a lot of this information goes around a lot, but I don't see nobody breaking it down the way it needs to be broken down, right? So the rapper Jim Jones was doing an interview or on his live, something to that effect, and he mentioned that being a rapper is the most dangerous job in the country, right? Simply because of how many rappers have died, like the frequency of them harming one another or just getting harmed in general. I think the numbers are something like the amount of rappers who have died since the inception of hip hop is in the 90s, like 90 something, right? 77 of those brothers died at the hands of a gun. You see what I'm saying? So, in my opinion, when we look at how dangerous being a rapper is, I actually think, if not the most dangerous job in the country, it's right up there. You know what I mean? Because when we look at jobs in general or professions in general that are dangerous or provide a risk of being harmed, the professions I looked up that was like the most dangerous jobs in America all involved like accidental accidental deaths or being hurt on an accident or during an accident at work, right? Where these professions have benefits, they have retirement plans, pensions may have a clause in your contract that says if you get hurt, you get X, Y, and Z, right? So there's a level of protection that's provided for these typical jobs and professions. Hip hop, just shit, primarily because it's all young black men, doesn't necessarily have this level of protection. You feel me? No pension, no retirement. The rappers, I put this on them to a degree. The older rappers, the OG rappers, they haven't set up any type of union or protection mechanism for the rappers to come. So there's no life, there's no insurance, there's nothing, right? So this creates like a free for all. It's like the Wild Wild West, anything goes type of shit, right? So yes, I think it's very, very dangerous to be a rapper just based on all of the compounding elements of young black men. Black crime and violence is big business in this country, which I'll get to in a second. So we have to acknowledge all of this shit. So yes, it's pretty dangerous to be a hip hop artist because Jim Jones, a while ago, he said the same thing, but he said it in a different context where he mentioned being a rapper is more dangerous than being a army participant, being a veteran, being a person that is actually in the army. People were up in arms. They was like, "Oh my God, how can he say that?" Well, before I move on, there was a professor from the University of Sydney, professor of psychology and music, Dr. Diana Theodora Kinney. She actually did a study on this exact thing, right? And this is what she came up with, family, and this is documented. So she basically told the Washington Post that people who go into rap music or hip hop are in a much more occupational hazard profession compared to war. She went on to say that we don't lose half of our army in a battle, which is real shit, right? So apparently her data, which used a sample group of 13,000 musicians in all genres, concluded that more than 50% of hip hop artists die by homicide, right? Based on Dr. Kinney's statistical data, one of every two hip hop artists are prone to die by homicide. That's alarming, right? To hear those numbers, to hear it put in that manner, that's alarming. And we have to understand that, like, America looks at us at times and tells us to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps. Like they say, damn near, you're out there on your own, you fix the problem. Where if you look at this country, traditionally, people who need help are giving help by the government. The government helps the individuals who need it the most. Typically, that's what they should typically do, right? I'm gonna read some information later that kind of compounds on that statement. But if this, and this is just real shit, family, if white pop artists were dying monthly, right? white young men who sing pop music, if they were dying monthly, it would be a national outcry. White people would be marching in front of the Capitol, which would cause an effect, which something would get put in place for them. It would be legislation. It would be focus groups. They would be saying, oh my God, why are they killing each other? You feel me? Well, the reason why they're not doing that to us, because they know exactly why we killing each other. You see what I'm saying? So when we look at violence in hip hop, if you watch the news, if you watch some political pundits, they'll spin it and make you think that hip hop or our communities are violent because of hip hop. Or in actuality, it's the other way around. Hip hop is violent because of our communities. These kids, these young people, come from the communities that you systematically shut out of a lot of things. So let's get into it, because the real conversation today, family, is why are black men killing each other, right? Because if you listen to the news, political pundits, different sources, they approach us with the black on black crime shit. Now, most of my black folks, most of my melanated people, they are aware at this point that black on black crime is just some political jargon, right? It's not a real thing. Crime is proximity based. Black, white, Asian, whoever you're around, that's who you kill. But that's some bullshit they use during election time to demonize us to move themselves forward in different situations, right? So we know that's some bullshit. But what I'm gonna do for y'all today, just real quickly, because we're gonna get into why we kill each other, what can be done about it. So we're gonna get into why we kill each other, and then we're gonna get into what can be done about it from the government, what can be done by us, because even though we've been put in this disadvantaged position, it's important that we still take accountability. Excuse me, family. It's important that we still take accountability and and put ourselves in the best position to avoid the traps of this system. So let's get into it, right? I'm gonna break something down for y'all real quick. Thank y'all. Thank everybody for listening. If you're listening to this on one of the digital platforms, please share the video. Please follow me. Please leave a review. Please download all that. Join the family. Let's go. Video, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, any of the video-based platforms, leave a comment, subscribe, join the Melanated Convo family. We got it popping over here. You feel me? Now, so here's the thing. When we look at why we kill each other, first we have to examine, like, how was our communities created? Why are there ghettos in America? Why are there downtrodden environments that breed crime and dysfunction, right? Let's get into it. We all know, most of us know about redlining, but let's get into it, because redlining wasn't like a 1 or 2 year thing. This shit took a long time to get them to where they at now. That's why I always say this system is not broken. It's working exactly the way they want it to. You feel me? So let's get into it. So redlining, this is the timeline. Just real quick, family, the timeline of how redlining has affected us. So and it goes back to the 1800s, right? In 1877, after we were released from being slaves, we're living amongst everybody else. The federal government protected us. Like in the South, the marshals, the police, the army, they actually provided protection for black citizens so nobody wouldn't fuck with us, right? Now, in 1877, the federal protection ended in the South. Then this ushered in Jim Crow, which was another form of slavery, another form of disenfranchisement. And because of Jim Crow, a lot of the black people in the South moved to the North and the West, which we now know is called the Great Migration, right? 6 million blacks moved to the North and the West. Now, I think it was never intended for us to live amongst this white population. I don't think they ever thought out, my opinion, I don't think they ever thought out the slavery thing to a degree. They didn't think, well, one day they'll be released amongst us, right? So because we were released amongst the whites, goddammit, they began to create mechanisms to shut us out of shit. So in 1877, they stopped protecting us. Black folks said, okay, fuck that. I'm going to the North or the West. Then that's the beginning of when racialized zoning That was kind of the motivation for the beginning of racialized zoning. And this took place from local, state, and federal government. They all were involved, family. You know what I mean? So this is the type of shit we talk about when we say institutionalized racism. That's not just something cool to say. It's documented that it happened that way. So 1877, that happens. Boom. By 1934, because between 1877 and 1934, there was zoning, there was covenants, there was things that was taking place to position this country to where we at now, right? By 1934, redlining, then it became like a national standard. Before that, certain states were adopting it and not adopting it, but by 1934, it was a national way of doing real estate business, removing or creating a structure where Black people are not approved for certain loans in certain areas. This is what they did, family, right? The FHA, Fannie Mae, all these companies we are aware of, they all participated, right? So Fannie Mae was introduced in 1938, which, they withheld loans from Black people. But the thing is, when Fannie Mae was introduced, and this is pivotal in looking at where we at now, right? When Fannie Mae was introduced, only 2% of the, hear this out, family, only 2% of the 120 billion in new housing subsidized by the federal government between 1934 and 1962 goes to non-white people, right? Only 2%. So this is a process of shutting us out of shit. And as I move forward, you'll see when we talk about reparations, when we talk about giving us money for all of this, some people scuff at it. Some people think it can't happen. But family, if you look at these laws and these regulations, white people actually had they were getting a leg up. So when someone whites, not all, but when someone white says, hey, I had nothing to do with that, I'm not racist, my parents aren't racist. Well, unfortunately, if you white in this system, you just may have participated in disenfranchising us, even if you didn't know. Because while you were getting a leg up and getting loans and getting approved and getting handouts, we was getting fucked. This is the reality, family. So $120 billion in new subsidized housing from 1934 to 1962, and we pretty much get none of it, right? So then it continues. That's 1938, 1944. The GI Bill was created where veterans coming back from the war was given a leg up by the government. The government said, hey, you went to war. We love you for it. Take this discount on a loan. Take this loan at a cheaper rate so you can get your thing popping with your family. Well, what happened? We participated in the war as well. But when this took place, the GI Bill shut all the Black soldiers out of it. So again, we're left to fend for ourselves, and we continue to go down this road. So we're shut out of the process of buying a house, which puts us in a situation where we have to live in squalor. We have to live in these communities that we probably wouldn't want to, but what are you to do if you can't get approved for the loan? This is just America, family. Any race of people would be in our position if they had to go through this in America. That's just real. So the GI Bill continued the shutting us out of the housing market, right? In 1956, this is when they instituted, well, let me read it to you. The National Interstate and Defense Highways Act Fund was the construction of the interstate highway system with a $25 billion budget. And this happened over 10 years. This was the largest public works project in the United States history. And this is when when we had particular communities in LA and other places, they put freeways right through our community. So again, a federally sanctioned program is put in place to derail our progress. You put these freeways through our neighborhoods, messes everything up. Now, this initiative accelerates and subsidizes the suburbanization that disproportionately benefited white middle class families. It also leads to the demolition of what we deemed blighted urban areas, displacing and further impoverishing Black people. So again, family, this is the systematic efforts that was used to put us where we at. So when you're asking, why are we killing each other? Why do our neighborhoods look like this? This is the process that was taken by the federal government. So by 1970, this is when it kind of hit an apex to me. By 1970, the effects of these programs was pretty much taking shape. It was working just how they wanted it to. So through action, and this was all through actions of the government, right? And by 1970, more than I'm sorry, 1970 is when, you know, more than half of the United States lived in suburbs. So they got what they wanted to accomplish. No, I apologize. Let me take that back. By 2010, more than half of America lived in suburbs. So what I'm getting at is the process from 1877 to 2010 produced exactly what they wanted it to produce. You see what I'm saying? So the to look at it by 2019. So look at how much time this is, family. Some people will tell you redlining in this type of treatment was a long time ago, but hear me out. By 2019, black home ownership hit a 50-year low. So what are we saying here? I'm basically saying that from 1877 to 2019, nothing has been done really to put us in a place where we can enjoy wealth in this country. And if anybody knows anything about wealth in America, the number one asset you can have to accumulate wealth is real estate. This country knows that. That's why they've done what they can to shut us out of it, creating the neighborhoods that produce the crime that we see when these young brothers kill each other, right? So that's the housing market. This is one piece to why we kill each other, because of the ghettos that were created for us to fester in, family. In 1965, they further pouted on us by creating the welfare programs, the Great Society in War on Poverty programs created by Lyndon B. Johnson's ass, creating these welfare programs that begin to create the divide between the black man and the black woman. You have to keep in mind, we already just coming out of slavery and coming out of Jim Crow. So we have this dysfunction over our head as it is. We're living in these fucked up communities where, we really don't have much room to maneuver the way we want to. So the welfare programs introduce even more despair by putting women in a position where you can't have a man in the house. So what do? They give black women free money, everybody, but we were greatly affected more than other people. You give black women free money. Now you're going into their homes and making sure there's no man there. Oh yeah. You couldn't have a man in the house if you got this free money, right? Right? So this is creating a situation where some black women are saying, shit, what I need a man for? My man is the government. You see? You see the trick that they pulled on us? You know what I mean? So you're already living in squalor. Now you're getting free money. The free money can't come with you actually having a man in the home. So you do what you can and make sure the man's not there, because they're coming in the home and checking for shoes, checking for toothbrushes. Yes, they actually did this shit, right? Boom. That's 1965. That's the second step, family, of putting us in a position where we're going to actually kill each other, because crime, degradation, all of these things fester when there's no money around. This is just facts, regardless of your race. You see what I'm saying? So that's 65. So then they hit us with the uppercut in 73 when they begin to institute the privatized prisons. See, our prison population was pretty low, like in the 70s, early 70s, 60s, right? It was pretty fucking low. Now we imprison people more than any other country in the world. By large amounts of numbers. Like it's crazy if you look that up. You know what I mean? So they introduced the prison industrial complex where privatized prisons get introduced. So now big money's involved. Now companies are getting contracts to make shit in prison. Now the states around the country have a vested interest in making sure we go to jail. Boom. The prison industrial complex happened in the 80s. Here comes the war on drugs, which i.e. was the war on niggas. See? So I just covered from the 1800s to pretty much fucking now. how institutionalized racism has put us in the position that we're in currently. You see what I'm saying? So when we ask ourselves, why are black men killing each other? When we ask that question, there's a reason. Like there's an actual reason. I'm all for being accountable. I'll get to what we can do as black folks to maneuver out of this situation. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention the elephant in the room, family. You see what I'm saying? This country has done a number on us like no other people walking around. That's why we say we need reparations, because like I just read to you, through all of the housing practices in the zoning laws during this process, white people were getting a leg up. They were getting a leg up. Real estate is the biggest indicator of wealth in this country. They knew that. They're providing wealth to the white folks. You see what I'm saying? So the prison industrial complex happened. Boom. The war on drugs happened. Boom. All of these things is pretty much a war on us. Crack cocaine miraculously is introduced to our community, right? Because really, a lot of the ghettos that I'm aware of, the individuals walking around with guns don't have a license. They didn't get it from a gun store. Where are all these guns coming from? So they put guns in our community. They put crack in our community. What do you think is going to happen? Because a lot of people will tell you, before crack cocaine, you can go to a ghetto in America, and the women, a lot of the men, they were still upstanding citizens. They worked. Some was on welfare, whatever. They was trying their best to make it happen. You would see Brenda from down the street. She walking with her 2 kids, trying to make it happen, doing what she got to do. In 3 months, when that crack hit, now she's skinny as hell. Now she walking around with her son's game system, trying to sell that shit. Now she's a shell of herself. It created a zombie-based community, right? Now it's a lot of struggle going on. Money is needed. There's no structure. So what do the young men do? They participate in the crack trade, which is going to land them in prison, which is what we just talked about. You see the cycle, right? Do you see the cycle? So do not let the government tell you that we're savages, that hip hop is causing violence in communities. That's bullshit. Our communities is causing violence in hip hop. You feel me? So that's important for us to know. So of course, when we ask what can be done, the government can create the same thing they did to put us in this position. If they wanted to, they can create the same type of systems to get it out of us, to get us out of this situation. As far as giving better home loans, right? Like create a program just for black people where the your credit ain't got to be all that. The interest rate's gonna be low. Boom. Do that for 10, 15 years. We're gonna start coming out of this rut that we're in. Create job programs inside of our neighborhoods. There's a lot of things that could be done by the government, and family, they know that. The reason why they're not doing it is because they don't want to. The reason why rappers can kill themselves and it isn't a national outcry. If white, like I said earlier, if white pop stars killed each other every month, the world would stop to find out why are our white babies hurting each other. We wouldn't hear enough of it. They would stop that shit. You see what I'm saying? They're not stopping ours because we're doing exactly what they want us to do. Now, that's how we got here. That's how the government can help us. Now we got to talk about what we can do personally, because again, we can't be victims, family. We need to understand how this system operates so we can maneuver around it, right? Understanding how the system operates so we can maneuver around it. Keep it in mind, even if you do everything quote unquote right, white supremacy may still end up fucking with you in some way or another. So I'm not saying that, but there are things we can do, right? So what can we do as a community to prevent young men from killing each other, right? So all of this, to me, if we're removing the government, I spoke to you about their involvement, what they've done to us, what they've continued to do to us, and now that shit's on autopilot. But when we look at what we can do, the first thing we can do, because really, family, charity starts in the home. So the first thing we can do is reevaluate how we relate with one another, right? How we find a mate, right? When we talk about having sex, when we talk about having fun, when we talk about having a family, we need to reevaluate all this shit, because all too often, even with everything I just mentioned, all too often we're not relating to each other in the right way. We're having kids in situations that shouldn't happen. Like how you choose a partner is extremely important, family. First, you have to know who you are. You have to know where you're going. You have to have goals and look to the future opposed to just thinking about tomorrow. Because having a baby without being in a relationship, because I was talking the other day about my brother Nick Cannon, who did something, that's how he operated to a degree, and we had a good conversation about that. He has money, so some of the ills of his decisions he won't feel to a degree. But all too often, I see young men who don't got money, who end up in that same position where you're just fucking everything you see with no condom on. Now you end up with 2, 3, 4 kids. You don't have a job. You don't have a business mind. You're still pretty immature. Women do the same thing. So how we decide our partner, how we decide who we're going to be in a relationship with can definitely affect the outcome of a kid, right? Because sometimes I'll hear people say after they have a child, they'll mention, I love my baby. I love my baby. I love my baby. I'm not saying you don't, but I think the love for a child actually starts before they get here. If you really love them, you would make sure they got a college fund. This is just real shit. Shit I didn't do. That's why I could come to y'all and talk to you about how important it is. They should have a college fund. If you really love them, you're going to make sure there's a man there or woman there. Like, that's actually loving your kid, saying, no, I need a man in this house, so I'm going to wait, right? Because young people, it's okay to have fun and have sex with somebody you like. Wear a condom. Everybody you fuck, you shouldn't have a baby with, right? A baby shouldn't be produced into a long-term relationship. It's fostered. What's long-term? Is that a year? Not in my opinion. Now, you can get lucky and find that one in a short amount of time. That's not likely. 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5. Don't put a time on it. Don't put a time on it. You got to get to know somebody. Like I said before, every season. Have you seen them stressed? Have you seen them with no money? Have you seen them with a little bit of money? Have you seen them when a family member died? Have you seen them when their car break down? Have you seen them how do they treat their mama? How do they treat their sisters? See, you have to love yourself so much that you're going to protect yourself at all costs. Forget the intimacy that people get blinded by. I'm thinking about my future. So when I see young people with kids and I see a young girl, she has a kid in a store, and this is real talk, family. We got to have a tough conversation with the family. Racism fucks us up. I get it, but we got to have tough love with each other too. I see a girl in the store. Her son's 3 years old. He don't got shoes on. His hair's not brushed. His nose is running. He's running around. She's yelling at him like she don't like him. Why the fuck did you have that baby? Have you ever seen that? Keep it real, man. Why'd you have that baby? Why? Poor little boy, right? I'm thinking to myself, he's gonna he's gonna grow up and shoot all of us. Come on, man. Come on, what is that? See? So when we talk about grooming, when we're talking about putting ourselves in a position to be as beneficial as we can to our children, this starts with the relating, with the relationship piece. And if you're a man, it starts way before that, because you should be chasing your purpose, not pussy. I'll say that again. You should be chasing your purpose, not pussy. And a lot of men I know, the purpose thing, that was down the line. I'm trying to fuck. What is that? That's destructive. That's destructive. We have to tell our kids this. That's destructive. If you're chasing your purpose, you ain't going to have time for somebody that's not on the same level you are. Not saying you're better than someone, but the same trajectory. You guys are going the same place. You're not going to have time for it. You're going to care so much because of where you're going. You're not going to slip up like that. You're not going to involve yourself with somebody that's not on the same path you on. So as a man, you need to find your purpose. Newsflash, young men, if you're having a problem finding your purpose, this is normal. It may come whenever. However, before it comes, don't have a baby, right? We see people all the time who have kids, no finances, right? The man and the woman, they're young. Neither one of them have jobs. Neither one of them have anything built. What do you think the end result is going to be? I know people say all the time when we talk about abortions and not bringing kids in the world, everyone says, hey, no, he could have been a doctor. That could have been the next LeBron James. No, he not. You got lucky. If the single mothers who wasn't shit, it was on drugs, it didn't have no money, and their kids grow up to be professional athletes or professional people who do well in society, They actually got lucky, family. In real life, you got to put the work in with your kid to bring them to the position you want them to be in. You have to do it, right? But if you're young, you don't know nothing, you're not evolved mentally or physically, this is no situation to have a kid in. I did this, family. I'm telling you firsthand. And people always say, well, no, my son doing good because he's alive, because he's not dead, because he's tall, because he's handsome. Why? If you didn't set up any resources for your kid, you failed them to a degree. I'm sorry, family. I'm sorry. That's all of us. So what we can do to help prevent some of the degradation in our community is take pride in starting two-parent homes. Take pride in finding a career, in setting yourself up before you have kids. Like, I'm not a proponent of telling people don't live in the hood, but there's a caveat to that, because if you do live in particular neighborhoods and you're doing better than the people in that neighborhood, and we already talked about how these neighborhoods got to where they are, then in essence, you become food. You become a goddamn steak, which I don't mind you leaving the neighborhood you grew up in. As long as you have a groupthink mentality where your whole goal is to double back and help the people in that neighborhood, then I'm cool with that. But we have to look at all of these things, right? So we have to make two-parent homes the standard. Like, young men need to be putting in their mind, I'm not having a baby unless I find a woman I love and I want to be with, right? We look at our music, when we look at our society to a degree, this whole baby mama thing, we are a little too comfortable with all of these terms. We're a little too comfortable, we're a little too comfortable with allowing our families to play out that way. That's not responsible. And then when we do this, we're assisting the system I was just telling you about. Now, granted, you can have a kid, nice neighborhood, two parents, and racism can still affect you. It's going to affect you regardless. However, you can attempt to minimize it, right? When you don't do things the correct way, you're kind of playing into their hands. And what are we to do? Because everything I just mentioned the government did to us, we understand they can create programs and do things to eventually get us out of this situation. But I'm going to be honest. I don't want to be negative, but I'll be honest. I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetime. So what are we to do if the government and the system we live in has decided not to participate in us flourishing? We have to start trying to do things ourselves. We have to take it upon ourselves to say, okay, I'm going to live different. I'm going to think different. You see what I'm saying? Now, like I mentioned before, parents, we got to take more stock in our kids. The grooming of the kid, the asking about homework, having conversations, making sure your kid can talk. Have you ever seen a young black boy or girl who you try to have a conversation with them and they can't get a word in edgewise? It's like a really difficult process. Well, it's your parents' fault, not the school. School is like a byproduct of the household. You know what I mean? Like, a school isn't really supposed to just teach your kid everything about life. You know what I mean? That's not really what it's designed for. And when we look at public schools, private and public, when we look at public schools, they're underfunded because of everything I mentioned earlier. They're underfunded. It's 80% white middle class women who teach our babies, who, just so you know, drive in from the communities I was just telling you about. So they don't really know black people. They're not around black people at all. They haven't put themselves in a position to relate to us because I just mentioned they don't live around us. And to me, one of the biggest factors of racism and misunderstanding rather, is the fact that in large numbers, we do not live around white people. We don't. I mentioned to you earlier about how the suburbs were created and how a lot of these situations played out. But in essence, in large numbers, we don't live around white people. So when they finally get around us, it's a disconnect, because think about that, family. Think about if you've never seen someone white up close, but the news is telling you they're savages. The media is telling you they're savages. Political pundits are putting us in a particular box. When you finally see one, it's like seeing a goddamn bear or a tiger. You don't know what to do. You know what I mean? So they don't live around us. So our kids are being educated by people who don't look like us, who don't live around us. So really, your house should be your training ground for the world your black baby is going to have to endure. This is reading to your kid. This is loving your kid, positive affirmations, making sure they're a clean person, making sure they say please and thank you, look a man in his eyes, shake a man's hand. All of these things are necessary. You see what I'm saying? But as we mentioned, before even doing all that, you got to get yourself right. And then you got to get your kids help. Let's just say you're in a neighborhood that's drug infested, because we all understand most kids that sell drugs, most young men who do most of this killing and participate in a lot of this degradation, they live in particular neighborhoods, right? So as a parent, single mom or two parents, you have to really step in and act. This could be putting them in a program across town. This could be changing the school. This could be sending them to fucking Atlanta to live with his auntie. Like, if you see your kid is on the road to being involved in street activity, you have to act as fast as you can. Now, granted, when they're kids, because I've seen this too, and I gotta mention this, I don't like this. I've seen young kids who mom or dad, because the mom or dad may be young, and they calling them nigga. They talking to them like they on the street. They're talking to them in language that you should not talk to a kid. So the kid's cussing. The kid is acting a particular way. And let's not front, black folks. We be thinking that shit's cute. Oh, look at him cussing. Look at him sagging this. No, you're breeding a fucking criminal. You need to stop. We need to stop. We need to take that serious. But we have to keep in mind, like, the systematic things that have put us in this place. I think if black folks thought about that, you would err on the side of caution when it came to doing certain things with your kids, because once they leave your house, anything can happen. And if you don't prepare them for the society that we live in, then shame on you. You see what I'm saying? So this is important. These are things we have to think about. And I just thought it was interesting when Jim Jones mentioned hip hop being the most dangerous profession in the world. And I read to you an article that kind of sided with him, saying, yeah, 1 out of every 2 black rappers are prone to die by homicide. That's alarming. And if this country doesn't want to address that, which I told you they're not going to, because to address black violence in hip hop, you have to address black violence in our communities. And this shit is working for them exactly the way they want it to, family. So these are all things we have to think about. We have to have the conversation. We have to be contextual, and all this is real. You know what I mean? So research some of this stuff on your own, man. If you know somebody that's having a kid, or you know a young person that's pregnant or whatever, give them some of this information. You know what I mean? Let's change the way we have our kids. Let's focus on family, like family structure in the longevity of our family, so we don't find ourselves in a lot of these positions. You feel me? So this is your brother Harrison, man. The Melanated Convo. Do me a favor, if you're listening to this on the digital platforms, I appreciate you guys. The numbers are going up on Facebook Podcasts, Overcast, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all of these places you can find the Melanated Convo podcast. Please go there, subscribe, leave a comment. The comments help. Leave a review. The reviews help. I appreciate you guys on the video, on the video front. Everyone that's on my YouTube page, please continue to subscribe, like the videos, share the videos. This is your brother Harrison.